Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang, and today, for the first time in Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap history, I am joined by a bit of a round table, a collection of co-hosts. On the call with me today, we've got our reigning Lollygaggers World Series champion, manager of the Washington State Winners, Mike.
Hello.
We've got manager of the Bronx Bandoleros, JMC.
Yep.
And manager of our expansion team, Sault Ste. Marie Locks, KJLee.
How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have everyone. First of all, before we get any further, I do want to give a quick happy birthday shout out to my intrepid co-host Ace. I know he mentioned earlier in the year the trade deadline is his birthday. Ace, hope you're celebrating with some family and enjoying some time with them. And here we are. It is trade deadline day. Our real time as we're recording right now is 7:47. So we've got about an hour and 15 minutes left in the trade deadline. I think it seems like trades are for the most part done. I was kind of joking around with KJ and Mike ahead of the recording that having them on this call does, diminish the chance of a trade happening late by quite a bit. But if, by any chance there are any big trades last minute, we'll, quickly touch on those. And if there are any that happen after we're done recording, there, is a podcast, of course, coming back up at the end of the week. So we'll get started with the transaction tracker. As of right now, there are 14 trades that have happened sort of on deadline week here. We'll start off with a pretty big one. The Washington State Winners sent Julio Rodriguez and Steven Kwan, a pair of outfielders, over to the Valley Gift Lords in exchange for Tyler Soderstrom, Johan Duran, and Ryan Sloan, who's currently ranked at number 8 on MLB Pipeline. Mike, as obviously the person involved in this trade, do you want to give us a little bit of your thoughts? And then KJ and James, y'all can jump in and share what you're thinking as well.
Yeah, sure. Julio, parting with Julio as a Mariners fan is a bit tough, but the way that my team was constructed, PCA has proven to be for real, or at least this year is for real. And so my outfield depth was pretty strong. And I felt like I could use some pitching, and I was looking for a starter, but when it was proposed to me, it was a little bit different, and Soderstrom right now is actually a pretty fair replacement for Julio, and then getting Duran allows me to use 2 relievers in my starter spots, so I'm able to get some extra points there, which kind of makes up for not getting a starter at the time. I've gotten one since. And then Ryan Sloan's a guy I've been after all year. We've talked about that, I bet, a half dozen times trying to get Ryan Sloan, so I was glad to finally make that happen. And then I replaced Steven Kwan with Jarren Duran.
And that has worked out pretty well so far. Yeah, and an interesting note about this trade, obviously with a guy in Johan Duran who's been traded between the two of you a couple times. Now, sort of the original trade was PCA came over to you in exchange for A's Max Muncy and Johan Duran. Duran now coming back, the sort of net for each team, Gift Lords ended up with Julio Rodriguez, Steven Kwan, and Max Muncy, who has since been dropped. You ended up with PCA, Tyler Soderstrom, and then Ryan Sloan, who, again, one of the probably top 2 or 3 pitching prospects in all of the sport. So quite a haul, obviously, coming back your way.
And I got
fellas, any thoughts on
reacquire Duran? So that was nice too.
Exactly. He sort of made his way back for the playoff stretch there, which is helpful to have those relief pitchers in there.
Oh, I like the Mike and I were talking about it earlier today too. Just like the trade tree of like trades that look weird or maybe look goofy like off the rip, but then it's like how they all transpired, and it's like ultimately Duran made it back onto Mike's team. It's like, what are the moves that happened in between there that sent him away but obviously brought him back? I just think it's cool, like those guys that I can't stop looking at who's ever team that I traded this guy to reacquire him. So I think it's just cool, just that full circle of how many of us have done that. So
Yeah, when you dive into the trees, they get pretty crazy there, I have to say. Soderstrom is a name I'm just keeping a close eye on. He has been so good since coming up for the A's last year. Obviously, that ballpark helps, but I think it translates pretty much anywhere. First base and left field eligibility also helps there. And I think that was overall just a really good get. And I did give some advice on this trade. I am a huge Julio Rodriguez believer. Obviously, it's hard not to be with that talent. And it's been a bit of a down year, but I think that he will obviously be a very good player for the Gift Lords moving forward.
And you kind of forget how young he is too.
Yeah.
How young he is, JMC, you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is another situation where you see Mike capitalizing on value too, making moves for guys such as Stephen Kwan, having him go off and have a pretty solid couple weeks, and then now he's a key piece in a bigger trade, which is just very shrewd dealing, which is nice to see. And Julio's still got a lot in the tank, obviously, but like Mike said, PCA, he's had a great year, great bounce back from that second half last year, and it's cool to see him end up with a top prospect from his team, which is always a good feeling.
We love that. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Julio Rodriguez, 25 years old. Like, feels like the guy's been in the league a long time since we were, giving him Griffey comps in, 2022. But he's 25. Like, that is still, obviously, like you said, a very young guy. And I agree. Very cool. Good note there, too, on Kwan, who had very low value, kind of rehabbed with Mike, so to speak, and then is now able to be flipped for, a couple pieces like Soderstrom and Duran. Speaking of those outfielders, you obviously mentioned a replacement. Jarren Duran headed from the Arizona Asphalt over to the Washington State Winners in exchange for Emmett Sheehan. So obviously Sheehan goes to Arizona, where Ace has him as a part of his Dodgers team, and Duran is able to kind of fill that outfield spot for the Winners.
I mean, I just thought I could fix Jarren Duran.
I wasn't going to say it. I was going to let you have your thunder.
From me to you, Mike, genuinely, thank you. Because, oh my God, he was unwatchable literally until the moment you acquired him. Like, I know we joke about the magic sauce, but it's actually kind of ridiculous. The second you got him, he turned around and looks like his 2024 self again. So,
and I looked at it earlier, I was like, since I got him, he's 4 for 7 with a homer and a double and 2 steals. Like, this guy's great.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And Emmett Sheehan, obviously young starter, a little bit hard to get starting pitching innings in Chavez Ravine right now, but he certainly has the arm talent, I would say, either to fill in when they maybe have somebody who goes down with injury, or you never know, young starter might get flipped in another trade. So he is certainly someone who I think has a bright future.
Up on a different roster.
Yeah.
Can't imagine who took a bet on that.
I would have guessed that roster was Detroit maybe a few days ago, but we were not there. The Valley Gift Lords, active as always. They made a trade with the Real Survivors. The Gift Lords sent Logan Webb over to the Real Survivors in exchange for Mason Wynn, Bubba Chandler, and the Bandoleros 2028 first round pick. JMC, obviously your pick is involved in here, but any thoughts on this trade to sort of start things off?
Look, for my brother, man, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that's the lowest possible pick imaginable next year. So taking that into consideration, I think this is a very good deal for Min. Top of the line starters, I feel like, starters in general, now that we have this expanded format, I feel like they've kind of been a bit harder to find. Last year I felt like I had a really solid stack of guys, obviously, that got taken from with the expansion. And then now trying to trade for guys, people looking for next year, wanting to hold on to their starters. It's a bit harder to deal with unless, in this instance, you have a younger guy like Bubba Chandler who you're willing to kind of take a chance on. You believe in the year going forward that he can step up and be a top quality starter, which he has the arm talent for, more than enough. So, but I definitely like it for Min, who's looking for some arms, has a solid group of bats, but gets another top-of-the-line pitcher to lock that down.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think particularly for our format where, innings are worth, I think, around 1.3, 1.4, like just guys who eat innings like that, kind of, like a Logan Webb, I think are especially valuable. Obviously you love guys that rack up Ks, and hey, he struck out the most batters in his career last year, so he's starting to, integrate that into his sort of profile even more. But I agree, fantastic trade for Min. And look, we know Al Martinet loves his young guys. Mason Wynn and Bubba Chandler both, I believe, under 25. So he gets a couple other young pieces to add to that youthful roster of his. Next trade, the Sault Ste. Marie Locks sent Taj Bradley over to Cuyahoga for Javier Assad, J.R. Ritchie, Jackson Jobe, and Sault Ste. Marie's own 2027 second-round pick. So I'll say again, as a person involved in this trade, KJ, do you want to walk us through it a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I was hesitant to give up Bradley. I mean, I'm kind of feeling it out of where I could get value from him too, but then obviously getting back my pick, I mean, it's 15th overall next year. So it's like, it's essential. I'm not counting as a first because it's still a second, but I think that's a great value. But then I'm also getting two great farm prospects. I mean, Job, obviously hometown kid. I think he could be a great asset in Detroit. And then obviously I think Ritchie has a lot ahead of him if he can stay healthy. But I think, yeah, there was just a lot coming back in that trade, and then Assad is simply just a filler for until Ritchie and Job get back in there. So I think it was great value in return, so I had to capitalize. But I think Bradley is an amazing young pitcher that Cuyahoga is taking, and you're not gonna be sad about that, I think, at all. So.
Yeah, Taj is a guy who has actually surprised me quite a bit. There's the famous decline trade where I wouldn't part with Trevor Story for him. Obviously that aged pretty poorly. He has done really well this year. And it does seem like you got sort of a bit of a sum of the parts kind of deal. A guy like Job, a guy like Ritchie, and then like you said, a late first, early second. It is interesting how you would think about Mike's 2027 first round pick versus your 2027 second round pick. They're probably only about, one selection away from one another. So right, it really is quite a bit of value in that pick there. And hopefully guys that fit your timeline a little bit. JMC, I know you had Jackson Jobe for a while. Obviously you then, I think, traded him over to Sault Ste. Marie, who sent him to Cuyahoga and then kind of came back in this deal. Is he's still a guy that's sort of a member of your belief squad, if you will?
I mean, he definitely was for a while. Like he was one of those guys. Personally, for me, I love when I'm sitting down, especially studying. I'm in grad school right now, so I always have baseball on in the background. So whenever I have one of those guys pitching, I'm like, I gotta watch him. And he was fun to watch for a while. Had his ups and downs, but young kid, that's to be expected. But he had his injury, and then I ended up dealing him to KJ. And it was one of those deals where it's like, bro, I'm so happy for you. You get your hometown kid. Oh, thank you, JMC. I've been looking for him for a while. I'm glad to see what he does. And like 2 days later, boom, right out the door. I'm like, are you kidding me?
It's the KJLee experience.
Yeah, so I reached out to him, and or maybe he reached out to me, but either way, we were talking, and it's like, I'm very happy he's back. It feels like this is where he's meant to be. Hopefully, he does blossom into something good for the Tigers, and then for KJ as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you.
I was joking with JMC too, and I guess it's end of trade deadline, so I can kind of release some of the secret. And I snuck a little bit talking about the Mike's trade up top, but it was just something that trading somebody away for maybe a lower value than what I value them as, to hopefully lower that value and then reacquire them later for that same lower value in a bigger trade like this. I think Job is worth a first all day long, easily alone. But then obviously getting him back in that kind of deal is something that I think, I don't know, maybe is silly, but at the same time, I think it was something I let JMC in on.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of look at the net of like everything that was acquired now that Job is sort of back to you. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm always interested, I think in particular with young guys with a fastball like Job's, who come back from Tommy John.
Yeah.
And you hear so many stories about these guys kind of relearning how to pitch and ultimately actually sort of coming out better pitchers, even if they're not as good throwers, if that kind of makes sense. So that's something I'd be really interesting to kind of keep an eye on with Job, if, you know, he turns into a little bit more of a pitcher's pitcher in that kind of way. Arizona is back on the trading bandwagon. They sent Randy Arozarena over to Cuyahoga in exchange for Ian Happ and Washington State's 2028 first-round pick. Mike, with a couple irons in this fire, both with your pick involved and obviously Randy playing for your team, I guess I'll let you lead things off here on your thoughts.
I thought this was interesting, is the word that I will use. Arozarena and Happ are the same age. Like, they're both 31. And I guess the way that I evaluate trades is like gaps in value. So the gap between Randy Arozarena and Ian Happ, is it first round gap? I don't know that I see it as being that large. So I raised an eyebrow when I saw the trade. I mean, Randy's been great. I think he's been propped up a little bit by his really hot start, and he's been very okay the rest of the way. So yeah, it was one of those trades where at the end, I'm not sure who really came out ahead.
Yeah, 73 points separate the two of them on the year. Happ has 300, Randy has 373. I was also shocked by Randy's age. I think he's just one of those guys who kind of came up a little bit later and had sort of a youthfulness to him in that, 2020 playoff run. We were all like, oh, Randy. But yeah, same age as Happ there. And, we were just sort of chatting and talking baseball with Shibes the other day about like what a consistent player Happ is. And I think in some ways Randy is kind of the opposite of that, where he has the highest of highs and then the lows are kind of low as well. So
pretty rough.
Yeah, I would imagine it maybe even worse watching him on a regular basis, not just from a fantasy perspective. Jay and KJ, what do you all sort of make of Cuyahoga? Definitely seems to be continuing to kind of retool while lower on the standings order. Obviously last year they finished in last place in 12th. Went out, made a number of trades, acquired Rafael Devers, acquired, and of course I'm trying to pull up the roster right now. I think they even went out and got Happ from Arizona in the first place. They went out and got Fernando Tatis and Pete Alonso, Bogarts. What do you all sort of make of a team that is kind of lower in the standings, working to kind of rebuild through trades like this and potentially get back into a contention rather than rebuilding through, picks and prospects and young players?
I think it comes down to, I don't know, like being in that middle ground, I think it's so hard of like where you have kind of like a mix of young guys, a mix of old guys. Like it's such a hard process to get back to, win now or, sell and rebuild. Mm-hmm. I think it's just, you don't want to be rebuilding because sometimes it sucks because you could be, 3 and I don't even know what I am. Whatever the standing is, but it's like it stinks being in a rebuild because you're just seeing those losing points every week. But I think ultimately it's like you have looking ahead, and I think that's kind of where Serial either gets to or ultimately makes that decide of like, hey, I've got some win now pieces. Let's go acquire a bunch more and try to run up the ladder. So I think just making that call I think is so hard sometimes. Seeing a losing battle.
JMC as a team, obviously you were up there in the standings last year, and then you've kind of fallen to sort of the middle this year. What do you kind of make of all that?
Well, for Serial, my New Jersey compatriot, I mean, even going back to the draft, the rookie draft from this past year, a lot of the moves that he made were win now moves. Taking Imai really early and kind of making deals to tool himself for a win now situation. And unfortunately it hasn't been the case, but his mentality has still been the same. And even now at the deadline, he's pretty active and pretty vocal about wanting to acquire top end pieces and willing to sacrifice future value in order to get that done, which I think is a good move. I mean, it helps that he doesn't have his first round pick, so you don't really have to worry too much about like, not that that really makes a big deal, but wanting a better pick in that situation, you can just fully buy into that push and just put yourself in a better spot for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I do sort of struggle with, because I obviously I like teams pushing to win. Where I worry a little bit is that Serial is kind of using the quote unquote all in assets to like get to a contention window, but then he almost can't push all the way in. Trade, using my team for example, like a Cade Anderson to get Ketel Marte, a Bubba Chandler to get Riley Green, because he sort of used those assets to get here. Now, where it could be interesting is if he's able to pick up some young talent in the draft, if he's able to scout, minor league guys pretty well and pick up guys before they really start appearing on these, like major ranking lists. I think that's a way to sort of then bring in that talent in another way and potentially make that push in sort of through that.
Agreed.
Yeah. Quick little reliever hit here. Cuyahoga sent Jeff Hoffman over to the Valley in exchange for Andre Palante. Anything particularly like about Andre Palante or Hoffman from the crowd?
I like this trade for Serial. Palante is not a big name, but he's been very solid. He kind of is, because he was in the Cardinals, he's kind of reminiscent of what Matthew Liberatore was last year for them, where he just kind of gets out there and gives you 6, and more times than not, it's a decent start. I like that, and getting a pick for Hoffman, I think that was a good move.
I like that a lot. But Palante just 27 too, so obviously not a super young player there, but somebody who can probably age more. I have to say those sort of inning eater, breaking ball, sinker baller type guys, I feel like they age better. And so I'd expect him to continue to be. I agree. I think that's a great future move for Serial there in the Black Panthers. Here's a trade that really interests me, and I'm excited to talk about this one. Arizona sent Michael Garcia and Emmett Sheehan over to Sault Ste. Marie in exchange for Matt McLean, JT Ginn, and Cuyahoga's 2027 third. KJ, obviously you are involved here. Do you want to talk a little bit about Garcia and Sheehan, or about the guys you sent out?
Sure. As far as Sheehan, I'm not going to go too much into it just because I thought he was going to be a Tiger. So I figured at least some Detroit person should, have a stake in that. But Garcia is someone that I think that's kind of like the centerfold of the trade for me, at least. I wanted Garcia. I like the position flexibility on the infield. I've got a whole bunch of high ceiling guys, I would say, but maybe not so much guys that I think are have maybe a better floor. I think Garcia is kind of that guy that could give me that. Obviously, Jin. I can't remember who I traded and got Jin for. It wasn't fantastic, but it's one of those. Got him because he was hurt, so kind of got him at maybe a little lower. And I made a couple other like pitching trades where I was like, to get more of a floor moving into next year and to the kind of years after, I'm okay with leaving him, especially with the amount of injured starting pitching that I have coming back. I was willing to kind of say, hey, I'll take a floor bat, get rid of a pitcher, and hope that one more of these guys pays off. So.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Michael Garcia is the player that stands out to me here most. Mike or JMC, any thoughts on him?
Yeah.
I'm curious where you all stand on him.
I thought this was a good move for you, KJ. I think the Garcia over McLean, I think the difference there is much larger than it is between Jin and Sheehan. So I like that move.
Yeah, Garcia's bat I actually pursued pretty aggressively in the offseason. I really worked to kind of try and pry him away from Ace. At the time, he was coming off of obviously a very strong season, and then I think it was also right in the middle of the WBC when he was going, bananas for Team Venezuela there. So it was a little bit harder at the time. He has had a tougher season by his standards, but this is also clearly a player who has done it very recently and at a pretty high level in the league. So I really like that get, for a kind of younger rebuilding team. Like, he's the perfect kind of guy to build around with that, as you said, just like that higher floor, a lot of positional flexibility, plays in, I think, a good park for his skill set. He's not a big homers guy. Obviously he can hit him out, but like a lot of space for doubles and even a few triples with his speed, so I think that works out well for him.
And he's got low strikeouts too. And I know you've harped on it, Zang, of like, that's something that I value in a team a lot. I mean, he's a low strikeout guy, and I like
that a lot. Yeah. Next trade is kind of fun. It includes two members of the people on this podcast. Sault Ste. Marie sent Ethan Salas over to the Bandoleros in exchange for Jack Leiter and Cuyahoga's 2027 second. So the pick that was acquired in that last trade. JMC, I'll let you start off. You are getting a young catching prospect in Salas. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you like about him?
Yes, very young. I think, reflecting on deals that I wanted to make and, talking to other people in the league too, there were instances where, I was offered picks as somebody who's, pretty low in the standings and wanting to rebuild. But I feel like my minor spots are pretty full already. And so I was kind of hesitant about, adding more picks or like long-term prospects. I would prefer to have somebody who can contribute pretty soon. Now, whether it's Salas or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that he has really gone off this year. He looks so much better than he has the past couple seasons, which is kind of crazy to think about because he's, 20? And I feel like he kind of popped on everyone's radar 16 or 17 years old. And then just like right off a cliff, just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But, his approach is very good, sweet lefty swing. Everything that you want to be excited about a prospect. So I'm willing to take that chance and, feel like he could contribute relatively soon, hopefully at a pretty premium position.
Yeah, and there's a lot of runway there in San Diego. They don't really. I think Freddie Fermin is catching for them right now, maybe. So there is a lot of runway for somebody to take the reins of that position and run with it. So and then KJ obviously getting Jack Leiter back in this deal. What are sort of your thoughts there?
I think, again, it's kind of getting rid of Jin. I wanted, another younger-ish arm. Again, I think trying to square up maybe the floor a little bit. I really like Salas. I was really hesitant on trading him and getting rid of, or letting him go. Ultimately, it came down to Dylan Dingler having the breakout year that I was hoping he had. Call back to when I traded Bohm week 1 mid-game.
That's right.
I did that to make space to pick up Dingler because I had dropped Dingler like the day before and was like, I want to get Dingler back, made the trade, and I have not looked back since. I put in the Discord saying I have a plan because I know I was getting some slack of like, KJ can't stop or KJ trading too much. Or
sorry, this is the recording live. I just got something of I got quite the proposition to me. Sorry, focusing back on the on the podcast. Ethan Salas is somebody I am
for Mackenzie Gore or Casey Mize
thrilled
live on pod.
No. I'm not trading for either one of them. One of my one of the people on my untouchable list was just propositioned to me, and I'm curious to see what return is offered. But Ethan Salas is someone I'm thrilled to say I was wrong about. I got into a huge Twitter argument with someone right at the beginning of the season when I called him a post-hype prospect. And I thought that it was kind of done for him. He has completely proven me wrong, totally turned it back around, and looks like somebody, like we said, who's going to be a pretty serious piece for the Padres moving forward. And Jack Leiter, although he does kind of have that smaller frame, he has done it at the major league level inconsistently. And, you just hope that a couple more years he can start to kind of find a little bit more of a middle ground and be that reliable starter that we've seen some of. Keeter Montero was sent from the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes over to the Cuyahoga Black Panthers in exchange for Harlan Susana, who is MLB's number 45 prospect, and Arizona's 2028 fourth rounder. Anyone have thoughts on either Susana or Montero?
I like Susana. He throws very hard, and I like him a lot. That one was also one where I'm not. Yeah, that one was another one, kind of like the Hap and Randy trade. I thought it was like, I'm not sure who gets the better part of it. Oh, it'll be interesting to see. But I like the arm talent of Susana.
Yeah,
and that was one that.
Go ahead.
I was saying that was one that Mike and I had talked about too. But I think I defended the Montero coming back, and I think between him and Job, I mean, obviously, I think inside baseball or inside Detroit, it's like one of those two I think goes to the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys is going to be a great reliever. One of those guys is going to be a great starting pitcher, and I think it's just ultimately high on a Detroit guy. But I think there is some good things I think coming to Serial in acquiring Montero.
Mm. Is he? How does he kind of profile as a pitcher? Like high strikeout guy, high volume, sinker ball. I can't say I actually know a ton about him. So as somebody who's watched him, what is there to kind of look out for?
Honestly, he's more of a pitch to contact. I don't think he gets a lot of swing and miss. I could be wrong. I think he's the type of guy that put him in a position. I think he's just kind of that workhorse. He will rise to that occasion. And I think that's where you're going to succeed. Like he's thrown in the pen. I mean, he has that role right now with Detroit. Before we traded Mize and Skubal, where it was he's in the pen, he's in the starting rotation, back and forth. Where it's like what is his ERA right now? I mean, it's still fantastic in any position, and I know there's not many guys that can do that, of like that bouncing around and still have success on both sides. So that's where I think once you get him honed into one spot, whether again the pen or the rotation, I think he can be a great weapon.
That's cool to hear. Yeah, and Susana, former Portland Pioneer prospect, he was moved in the Bryce Terang deal along with Teoscar Hernandez. So he is then sort of flipped over to Southwest Kansas here. I agree on everything Mike said. Huge fastball. He throws super hard and quietly, I think Washington has actually done a nice job developing a couple pitchers. I think particularly as we're looking at this year, what they were able to do to kind of fix Foster Griffin, what they've gotten out of Cade Cavalli. So that'll be an interesting name to kind of keep an eye on. Next trade is one that really fascinated me. I know I've said that about a couple, but this one, the more I looked at it, the more interested I was. North Pole sent Brian Baker over to the Valley Gift Lords in exchange for Michael McGreevy, Kenley Jansen, and Arizona's 2028 first. JMC, what do you make of the Valley taking such a big swing, obviously going out and getting another closer in Baker, but giving up a first along with a couple pieces in McGreevy and Jansen?
Yeah, I mean that's a big haul for Brian Baker. He's pitched well. He's the closer for the best team in the AL right now, so there's a lot of value in that. And it's kind of impressive, how much Al values his pen. In spite of all the big names that he has in there, he wants every single arm, all 6 of them, to be like locked and loaded, closers, shut down guys. And, we've seen that be a really big advantage in these big matchups in the past couple weeks and throughout the season. So I think it just speaks to what he prioritizes, and that's a guy you want. That's a position that you want to fill. Go for it.
Absolutely. I mean, Brian Baker's been unbelievable. I'm trying to find it out. I believe he was a waiver claim at the beginning of the year by the Natty Bows. Yeah. So thanks for the confirmation there. To be able to haul in. I'm not crazy about McGreevy, but he's a solid, back end starter. And a first pick in exchange for a guy you got for Fob is obviously great work there. And I too, I'm so fascinated by the way Al runs his bullpen. Like to me, it seems like he prioritizes young bats And then right below that is like elite closers. And then starting pitchers are kind of third behind that. And I've talked about how cool I think it is that people build their rosters in different ways, and like, all credit to him. Clearly it's working. Take a look at our score this week. It's working pretty well for him. But yeah, this was a pretty interesting one. Mike, any thoughts on this?
No, I thought Baker. I mean, Baker's for real. I think it's not smoke and mirrors. Like the number, like underlying metrics back it up. He's been really good. Duran out and Baker in. I think that's that's a move I would make. So kudos.
It's a solid trade. Yeah. Again, sort of looking at the forest, the bigger picture is often important. Like, no, it's not just that, he kind of got this. It's that, the exchange for Duran, but then also who he got kind of in exchange for that. And he's also bringing in Julio and Quan and all that. It's nicely done. 3 more trades to go. The Fenton Melonhead sent Jacob deGrom over to the Washington State Winners in exchange for Brian Reynolds. As is tradition, Mike, as a member of this trade, lead us off.
I had a little bit of pitching depth knocked off with Sheehan getting sent to the minors and then being traded away, and Flaherty being hurt. I didn't have enough starters, I thought, to be as competitive as I want to be, and then I looked at deGrom. I was trying to do it for prospects, but he wanted an MLB-ready bat, and Brian Reynolds has been good, but I have a lot of people who can play left field, and so I thought it just made a lot of sense for both of us.
Definitely fills a nice hole for Big Peach here as well. I was talking with him a little bit about his roster, and I mentioned maybe a bullpen arm, and then the outfield were kind of the 2 places to really look at improving. So he was able to do this. Brian Reynolds, quietly 6th in outfielder points this season. So he has been, just a quality, consistent bat, obviously switch hitter, and 31. So, no spring chicken, but also, this isn't his last season in the league or anything.
It might be deGrom's, though.
It might be deGrom's, but damn, are they going to be some quality innings before it is.
I told him, I said I want to milk every inning I can out of him.
Yeah. That is, he is such a fascinating. Have either you, KJ or JMC, have you ever had him in fantasy before, deGrom?
I have not. Or I think I had him what year did he have Tom? He had Tommy John, didn't he?
That would have been 23 because it was the year they won the World Series.
I had him in 23.
Oh, there you go.
That's rough, man.
That's tough. Thus is the way. It's the Jacob deGrom. You'll get like crazy high points, but low on the innings, and it'll be interesting down the stretch. I think what the Rangers team looks like, and
I was nervous
how
about them not being in it and shutting him down. But everybody's in that division is so awful. That the Rangers have to think they're still in it. And I just hope they stay in it long enough that he keeps having a reason to throw.
Yeah, and, I like to believe that when he declined a trade, that kind of meant that, like, he wanted to stay and win in Texas. It meant he didn't want to move to Atlanta, and he has his ranch in Texas, and he's, like, kind of happy. But,
he's got the retirement home, yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm not totally naive, but I do want to believe a little bit of his, like, he's committed to that. And so, that may lead to a little bit of, hopefully obviously he's going to put in quality innings. It's Jacob deGrom, so that should be good.
I mean, hey, Scherzer's 42. I mean, you could still get 4 more years out of him, Mike.
Yeah. You never know.
There's no way he's on my roster in 4 years.
That would be pretty surprising, I have to say. I'll be surprised if he's on your roster after next year. 4 more years would be a bit of a stretch.
He'll be traded. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
4 more years. 4 more years.
4 more years. The next trade does involve me. The sole sovereign sent Robert Gasper and a 2027 4th round pick over to the Portland Pioneers for the North Pole's 2027 2nd round pick. it was a blessing and a curse that the news came down today of Hunter Green's elbow soreness. I was counting on him. I did not see myself really making a move today. I kind of had all of my irons out of the fire, and then that came across. So I'm glad I was able to do something ahead of time. I discussed a lot of trades with a lot of people, and ultimately this is what I was able to get across. Robert Gasser, obviously not a super name or anything, but somebody that will fill in those innings down the stretch. And I think somebody I like and think can be good, and also and this is a little bit of a nasty way of looking at it, but like somebody I wouldn't kill myself over dropping, if it came down to that. There is the pig Garrett Crochet. He's expected back at some point, and if I do need to drop somebody, I wouldn't love it, but Gasser is a guy who I could see being okay with sending to waivers. And so that was a factor there too, not going out and getting a big name and then, oh my gosh, I'm stuck with how do I, fit this name in and get Crochet back and all that. So hopefully somebody that can kind of help push through. And any other thoughts? I mean, it's obviously not a huge name or anything, but from an outside perspective, anyone?
My only worry, I say my only worry with that hole though is if Gasser loses the job when Harrison comes back. And I think you might be in that same boat, and you're going to waivers instead of trades. So that was the one thing that stuck out to me when I saw that trade.
I think that Brandon Sproat was already sent down for Kyle Harrison. That was my first instinct when I read that little blurb, and it was like he and Sproat have a chance to lose their spot to Harrison, but then Sproat was sent down last night, so I think that he's safe for now.
I thought Sprout he was sent down for May.
That may have been it. Well, I could be screwed then. Finding out live on air, I might be screwed. Well, hey, maybe he'll turn into a nice little long reliever, and I won't have to.
He was before he went into the rotation, right?
I believe he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, he might be one of those guys that you can just plug in and use them as a reliever until you get.
Yeah, and I am, as you can see on my roster, between Morris, Jake Latz, I had what's his name, Brazoban in there for a while, Kendry Rojas, those guys who have starting pitcher eligibility but are relievers and can kind of get you those extra innings. Big fan of those guys. So worst case, Gasser turns into that. It's not the end of the world, but certainly not a groundbreaking trade or anything.
You've got 30 minutes.
Yeah, plenty of time. We'll negotiate on air. Last trade of the evening, the Fenton Melonheads sent Luke Keeschel and a 2027 third-round pick over to Cuyahoga in exchange for Christian Scott and Hurston Waldrip. JMC, why don't we start with you on this one? Any thoughts on this trade?
When he came up last year, I really liked Keeschel. Seemed like he had a really mature approach, just putting the balls in play, really nice swing. I feel like this year he's been kind of not the same. Can't say I've watched him too much. But Hurston Waldrop, good prospects. Christian Scott, he's had his bright moments for the Mets. So I feel like I lean more towards the Scott Waldrop side, but I don't think it's a bad trade at all. I think there's a lot of potential on both ends for what all three of those players, for what they could turn into.
Definitely. It's a young players haul for sure. So obviously I think good for both sides in that respect. Peach asked me about this one. Initially I was like, I don't really like Christian Scott. And then I took a little bit closer look at the numbers, took a closer look at like his matchups and his Savant page and stuff. And it actually kind of struck me. He has, I think in the 89th percentile for K percentage, and has really great extensions. So some stuff that like projects really well for him kind of to continue what he's doing here. So I actually had quite a nice turnaround there. And Hurston Waldrop's another name that I really like. Mike, I know you, I think, formerly employed Hurston Waldrop. He came, am I right that he came over in the Zach Wheeler trade to Arizona? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So just as a former employer, any thoughts on him being moved again?
I think I'm with JMC on this one. at this point, it feels like the Waldrop Scott side is a little bit more,
I think we lost Mike. Hopefully he will be back soon and we can get his thoughts there. But yeah, definitely kind of with JMC, I lean a little bit on that Scott Waldrop side. Positional eligibility, obviously, like as you said, starting pitchers are hard to come by. So getting two of them there is definitely valuable. Like you said, Keishal, high floor guy, very mature approach, and has picked up, along with second base, center field, and right field position eligibility. So that is really helpful. Those are, center field and second base, obviously two positions that are harder to fill. So that is a quality get for Cuyahoga for sure.
I'm just looking at his stats from last year to this year, and he played 49 games. I'm just going to round up 50 games last year and 100 games this year. Mm-hmm. And you look at them like side by side, it is not, his batting average has dropped like 40 points, but the rest of the stats, they are pretty smack dab close. I think that's maybe, you lose a little bit of the average, but I think you still have, he's still a young kid. I don't know how old he is, but it's second year in the majors. 23 years old. I think it's a great asset that you'll get. You'll get him for years to come.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a great piece and definitely one to hold on to there for Cuyahoga. It does look like Mike is out for the evening. So it is actually just in time for us to move on to our real life repercussions segment, in which I'll kind of just go back and forth here between JMC and KJ. So in this segment, I'm going to be kind of going over guys that were traded, obviously in real life, and how that affects their fantasy value. For example, let's start off with KJ. KJ, Tarek Skubal going from the Tigers to the Dodgers. First of all, my condolences. Second of all, how do you see that potentially affecting his value going forward as a fantasy player?
His value, I don't think drops any. He was, because of his injury this year. I think in comparison to this year alone, I don't know if we're going to see, the Cy Young Award winner from last year, but you still have a guy who is easily one of the top pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to have that, 6 inning restriction where, last year and the year before, the reason he was so good is because I don't know how many complete games he had. So I think you're still going to get the same amount of value for this year. Mm-hmm. But I think, especially in a Dodger organization where they have, 2 rotations, you have the ability to, put somebody, more of a long reliever in the pen to help out, restrict these guys. And they have had a bunch of injuries in the Dodger organization too. So I think that's kind of where you're leaning, is you're going to see similar to the Detroit production from 2026.
Definitely. So. In terms of the return package, Southwest Kansas has Zaire Hope going from the Dodgers to the Tigers. JMC, how do you see that affecting his value, obviously as a young outfielder that potentially could come up probably as soon as next year for the Tigers?
Yeah, so Hope was actually one of my old farmhands. I ended up trading him, I believe, to Min in the Ryan Weathers deal, along with Duno and something else. But he's a really good prospect, and I think I saw something on Twitter where, it gets kind of lost in the fact that, Hope is kind of like the Dodgers' 4th best outfield prospect. But he's I believe the 25 overall ranked prospect in MLB, and he's the highest ever prospect in terms of the MLB 100 to get moved for an expiring contract.
Wow.
So I think when you look at it that way, it's maybe not as bad as it seems firsthand. I feel like the River Ryan, instead of Emmett Sheehan, kind of had people, up in spurs a bit. But in terms of Zaire Hope, he's a very quality prospect, big bat, big power. I think he could definitely develop into something solid with the Tigers where he's not as blocked. Obviously the Dodgers have a pretty solid outfield right now. They have a pretty solid group of outfield prospects. So I think this opens up the window for more playing time quicker.
Definitely agree there. pop back over to KJ for this one. The North Pole Natty Bows employ Adley Rutschman, who has moved from the Baltimore Orioles to the Boston Red Sox. You're telling me this just for the first time? How do you see his value changing going from Baltimore over to Boston?
I like that for him. I mean, he's not a guy that. I mean, he's a switch hitter too. So I mean, obviously he sprays the ball all over the place. But I think his power from the left side. I don't remember Home Run Derby what it looks like left versus right, but I think you're going to see an upswing in his home runs. I think he is a great asset. I think in that ballpark that he's going. I'm excited for this trade. I like Rushman a lot. I think it might be bittersweet for Bose seeing his catcher in Boston, but from a fantasy perspective, I got to say that you got to be happy with this trade to see him succeed in a park that may be more suited for his capabilities.
Yeah, Fenway helps him for sure, and I do think it's going to be a good environment there too. I will quickly talk over the prospects involved in this trade: Anthony Ianson and Kyson Witherspoon. Obviously both going from the Red Sox to the Orioles. I think for Ianson in particular, this is really, really good for him. The Red Sox rotation is quietly pretty locked up for the next few years. Ranger Suarez is under contract for 5 years, Garrett Crochet for 6 years. Peyton Tolley doesn't look like he's going anywhere. And Jake Bennett has really emerged as a guy who looks like just like a long-term quality innings eater. Sonny Gray's the only maybe there, obviously being on the older side, but he's been phenomenal this year. There were definitely questions. Obviously, a starting pitcher is going to find his spot, but Ianson has all the runway in the world now to be able to make it as like a true top of the rotation starter for Baltimore. The only thing I worry about a little bit, this is a guy who's a 3rd round pick, signed over slot, but Boston was obviously able to, I think, unlock what was successful about him. So the only concern I would have is whether he is kind of still able to access that to the fullest extent in a different organization. I think he will. He's got a ton of arm talent. I actually really like this move for Kyson Witherspoon, who is not a typical Sox guy. He's not as big. He is right-handed and doesn't have that big extension stuff, and it wasn't really working. He has had, frankly, a pretty bad year in the minors. So I think going to a different organization might help him out there. The Joinville-friendly Capybaras have Freddie Peralta, who went from the Mets to the Rays. JMC, do you think this is good or bad for Freddie's value?
Well, it's definitely bad for the value of my brand new Freddie Peralta bobblehead that I just acquired. I have no clue what I'm going to do with that.
Collector's item.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I think it's obviously phenomenal outside looking in. Rays, just such a well-regarded organization when it comes to developing pitchers. We all know this. So you would like to think that they'd be able to get the most out of him, bring him back to where he was with the Brewers, another well-regarded organization in terms of pitching. I don't know. I know his first start was kind of rough. Maybe it takes a couple weeks to get the Mets stink out of him, but I think that this is a pretty good move that Hideki should be looking forward to.
Yeah. Hard agree there. KJ, the North Pole Natty Bows outfielder Taylor Ward has actually been dropped, so I'm going to take him off this list. I just remembered that. But let's talk about another Red Sox here. Curtis Mead came over from the Nationals to the Red Sox. Any thoughts on that? He plays for the Capybaras.
Yeah, he'll be good next year.
Yep.
I like Mead a lot. I think he is a dynasty guy that I think he's, no matter whether he's a floor guy, obviously being younger, he's the type of guy that I think you could build around as well. I mean, is he 24? Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, he's got position eligibility. I don't know if he'll keep that while in Boston. They plan to keep him more at second
base,
moving
yeah.
Duran over to. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long he keeps that, but I think that's also a great asset that JFC is going to get. Not JFC. Yeah, I am right. Okay. Yeah. And I think that JFC's roster too, I think will benefit from just the. Oh, he is right. I thought he was left-handed. I am so sorry. Am I
No,
looking
he's
at?
right-handed. Polaire percentage and right-handed is the Craig Breslow model for
Yeah.
hitters. It is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a really good fit in Boston.
Yeah.
To sort of give a little anecdote, when he was traded, everyone on Red Sox Twitter freaked out, and then we all went on his Savant page, looked at his Polaire percentage, looked at his home run spray chart, and went, yeah, he's going to fucking mash at Fenway. Unfortunately, it looks like we'll probably need to wait until, either late September or next year to see that. But I agree. I think this can be very good going forward. In the other direction, Connolly Early goes from the Red Sox to the Nationals. JMC, any thoughts on that? Connolly Early for the Fenton Melonheads.
Red Sox player, don't care. On to the next one.
I do care a little bit, so I'll let no. The only thing I would say, Early, similar to Ianson, later pick that the Sox got the most out of, and I'm curious to see how that translates over to Washington, but a lot more runway, and he is going to be able to stick in that rotation for sure. Clay Holmes, I'll go back to you, JMC, former Yankee. Hopefully you can drum up some juice for that. St. Petersburg has Clay Holmes. He goes from the Mets to the Cubs. Is that positive or negative for him?
It's so interesting, all these Met starters going to new places where teams are like, wow, this is a really valuable arm that we can utilize, and the Mets aren't utilizing them well. It was so weird when, I keep forgetting his name. I think Stern is the Mets GM.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I value defense. I want to prioritize defense. And you sign Bichette, you put him out of position. You have Beatty and Vientos playing first base. It just, the math isn't really mathing there.
Yeah.
But Holmes, even when he was a closer with the Yankees, just phenomenal ground ball guy, that bowling ball sinker, just, it's so hard to elevate. And this is kind of in that David Peterson type move where he's going to a team with a phenomenal infield.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone in that infield is just top of the line, incredible defenders. I think that it's a great place for him to thrive because he has ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, hard to find. Bregman, Swanson, Nico Horner, and Michael Busch. That'll get it done for a sinker baller. Seoul Sovereigns have Tyler Wells, relief pitcher. He goes from the Orioles to the Rays. Obviously, we've talked on Rays. KJ, is it safe to assume you think this is a positive move as well?
I think so. I mean, he's got a setup role, I think, ahead of him
Yeah.
in the race. So I'm not sure how much it's going to change his value as far as going from Orioles to Rays. But I think, yeah, he is the type of guy that you're still going to throw him out there. He's going to pick up holds. He's going to, yes, to still be an asset. You're still going to, maybe rely on getting those, 5, 6-ish points from every time he goes out. It doesn't look like he does really any more innings. So I think it's just kind of a lateral move, and I think Soul's still going to be happy, keeping him in that relief spot.
Yeah, he should be a good piece in that pen. Similar story to Clay Holmes. In this case for the Natty Bows, Kevin Gausman goes from the Blue Jays to the Cubs. Again, a guy with that big splitter, a lot of ground balls. JMC, I'm assuming similar opinion there.
Yeah, I think he fits. I see the vision that the Cubs are going for. He's been a bit inconsistent this year. I think I have more confidence in Holmes to have a greater boost to his performance. Not that he'd be better, just that he'd benefit more from the move. But, I mean, it's interesting to see what else Gossman has in the tank. His playoff starts last year, some of the ones that I saw, he's just dominant, so he still has the stuff. Just not as consistent as he used to be, maybe. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that was the big thing that jumped out to me. Cubs get a guy who did it in the postseason as recently as last year, and I don't think they have a lot of that. So that I think is a pretty big get there. The friendly Capybaras have Joe Adele, who went from the Angels to the Guardians. KJ, thoughts on that move?
I like this one for him. I mean, the Guardians are that sneaky. I mean, I don't think they're sneaky after this trade deadline, but they are a good ball club this year, and they are making a push for that playoffs. And I think I think he's going to bat 3 or 4, kind of in that maybe J-Ram like power slot. and I think this could be impactful for JFC racking up RBIs, getting more of those runs across. And yeah, I think he could uptick. I mean, he's what I think 455 last year. He's already at 300 right here with LA. I think you could see a nice spike with his points with those runs and RBIs coming.
Yeah, I think I heard when he was traded over, he immediately became the leader in Guardians home runs and like slugging percentage or something. Like, immediately became one of the best bats in there. Another Guardians trade, the Asphalt had their starting pitcher Foster Griffin go from the Nationals to the Guardians. JMC.
Yeah, it's a huge boost. I'm assuming here, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the Guardians have always had a very good defense. That's something they've always prioritized. Um, Great rotation, great arms in the pen. They always seem to be very reliable on the defensive end. So that's definitely bound to boost his stats there, which are already really good. All having the best year of his career so far, and I know the Nationals are trying to re-sign him, but I think they offered him 3 years and he wanted five at least. Um, so he goes to a much better opportunity there where hopefully they invest in him, and because I think he's going to be a very good fit for what they've got going on.
Yeah, agreed. Interesting one for KJ. Another Fenton Melonhead here. Jose Soriano went from the Angels to the Blue Jays. This is obviously a guy who's kind of broken out this year. What are your thoughts on his value based on that trade?
I think I like it. Oh, it was one of those surprising ones. I didn't expect Soriano. Real world baseball, I expect him to move. I think he goes into a stronger rotation. Obviously, I think a better organization that develops pitching. I mean, they kind of always had seems like Toronto's always had some pretty good pitchers, but yeah, breakout year. You're looking at him obviously going to continue that trend, and if you have more coaches around you and keep getting even better, I think this is a great win for Fenton to acquire somebody that breakout and the possibility of a higher ceiling. So
yeah,
I like that
if
a lot.
Nothing else, Andres Jimenez at shortstop instead of Zach Neto, immediate upgrade for a sinker baller like Soriano.
Yeah.
Another,
and he's in he's in contracts for 2028 too.
Yes.
So I think you get him for at least 2 more years in Toronto as well.
A little bit of a chance to settle in there. Yeah. So this is a maybe, next year and beyond sort of deal, both for them and then obviously for the effect on Fenton there. Another friendly capybara, Chris Bubich, went from the Royals to the Dodgers. JMC?
Yeah, flipping to the opposite end of a deal that's not really meaningful for his new team beyond this year. I know Bubich, his contract's expiring at the end of this year, so he's also on the injured list.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll probably be like kind of like a fill-in kind of guy, maybe like long reliever, maybe even a starter if injuries still persist with the Dodgers rotation. They're still trotting out Eric Lauer, so I mean, you assume that he'd start over him without question. But I don't know. It's just an interesting move, one that I don't think anyone really expected. Dodgers got Scooble, and it's like, all right, well, they have starting pitchers galore. You look at the names that they have; they're starting 5, another 5 guys behind them that can all pitch really well, and another guy to the mix, I guess, if you're going to go all the way and make sure you got your bases covered.
Yeah, definitely a tough environment to find innings as a starting pitcher. One of the most interesting trades of the real life deadline, Liam Hicks went over from the Marlins to the Rays. He was obviously an early season waiver pickup from the Asphalt and has been great for them. KJ, what do you make of this one?
I just saw today he just hit a grand slam. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, last night he hit a grand slam. So it's like, yeah, him batting 4th. I don't know when the last time we saw a catcher batting 4th on top of that. But in that Rays organization, I mean, they are first, I believe, in AL right now. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to be wrong. So going into that batting 280, I think this is again kind of similar to that. The Joe Adele of just like you're I think going to reap the benefits of being in a place where you're going to have more runs, more RBIs. I mean, I think you can't be happier with picking him into um, getting him into an organization, and he was a pickup from Ace too
Yeah, absolutely. So
for
good.
25. So you're getting the number 2 catcher in the league actually right now too.
Yeah, one of the big reasons for the sort of strength of that offense this year, frankly, has been Liam Hicks getting so much production from that spot. I'll tell you what, a catcher batting cleanup will put a little lead in your pencil, man. There's something about that just gets me going. Like, that is so cool. Speaking of asphalt players who are moving to, I believe, advantageous places. JMC, we saw Dustin May, who is a recent trade acquisition for the asphalt, go from the Cardinals to the Brewers. I have a feeling I know how you're thinking on that, but let us know.
Yeah, good old double move for May. I think, obviously, we all know what the Brewers can do with pitchers, so he's in a much better environment there. But he's had a really solid season all around. I think, a couple weeks here and there where he's gotten blown up, but um, I think he's had a really resurgent year, especially dealing with all the injuries he has, just inconsistencies with playing time and ability. But um, I think it's a pretty solid arm, not the most reliable one, but if he can slot in as like a good, you know, SP4 in the playoffs, that, you know, closeout guy for a series, to loop it back around, I think, he's in a good spot for that.
Yeah. Agree on all. KJ, Portland Pioneers relief pitcher Luke Weaver goes from a setup role on the Mets to a closing role on the Pirates. Thoughts?
$4 for a guy that's got a 1 point ERA and now going to get saves. I can't imagine you'd be mad at all.
Can't say I am. I do love it. Another just interesting little thing there. I unfortunately had quite a few stacks of setup men and closers. I had 2 Red Sox setup men, and then I also had Weaver and Devin Williams. So kind of unless those teams were winning, I wasn't really getting any reliever points. So spreading that out a little bit is another just area where it is really helpful, and I think will bear fruit moving forward. JMC, now your guy, Luis Garcia Jr., yet another Arizona asphalt, goes from the Nationals to the Yankees. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching him so far. He's a professional hitter. That home run in our first game with him, just great piece of hitting, well below the zone, just right into the right field bleachers. Um, Even today, he had an 11 pitch at bat, in the 6th inning with multiple runners on, and it was just like a well fought at bat. And I feel like sometimes with the Yankees, we're kind of 3 true outcomes, all or nothing at certain points when it feels like they've checked out. Seeing a guy like that who it seems like you're crying for watching some of these at bats, like just foul some balls off, take pitches, put the ball in play. It doesn't need to be all or nothing, and that's exactly what he does. Just smooth swing. I'm pretty excited. I was a bit hesitant when we got him only because of the position, but I knew the kind of hitter that we were bringing in, and he's had a phenomenal season. It's really exciting to see what he brings to the team down the stretch.
Yeah, I think this is an old John Boyism, but teams should do what their rivals least want them to do. And I was at a Portland Fire game on Sunday. I got the notification at halftime, and I audibly went, shit, when I saw that Luis Garcia had gotten traded to the Yankees. It's a great trade. 25 home runs already on the year. I got it wrong in the last podcast. He's actually a lefty. Fits even better in that ballpark, and clearly has already taken advantage of the advantages of that right field. So good fit there, and just continues to be such a valuable player for the asphalt. 2 more to go. North Pole Natty Bows second baseman Luis Arias goes from the Giants to the Phillies. KJ, how do you think that affects his fantasy value?
I don't know if you're just teeing me up for like the Joe Adells and the Liam Hicks of the world, but inserting a guy that wasn't in a great necessarily offense and putting him into an offense that can hit and can do well, I think you're going to do wonders there. I mean, I think there's the goofy thing of seeing Luis Ariz batting fourth for the Phillies. I don't think that'll be a long-term thing. But still, I mean, if he's going to hit homers like he did last night as well, he's got 5 on the year, I think, and only hit 8 last year. So,
yeah.
Hey, Ariz with home runs, that'd be sweet.
That is a little bit of a cheat code. The one thing that jumps out to me, overall, I think it is a positive move. He's in a much better lineup. For such a contact-oriented guy like him, that really big outfield in Oracle, I actually think is advantageous. So I think we might see the average come down a little bit, but you might see the power numbers go up a little bit too. Obviously, Citizens Bank is such a great place to hit.
I think it's a shorter porch to left, though, isn't it?
Is that right? I can't say I know the dimensions of that ballpark all that well, but certainly a better hitting environment. No matter what. And then for our final trade, the Fenton Melonheads starting pitcher Robbie Ray. He goes from the Giants to the Padres. JMC, what do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of like on it. I don't think it's really anything crazy. Good for the Padres that they have more pitching depth, which they needed, but I don't know. I don't know if Robbie Ray has what it takes to be a consistent guy for them. I think he'll have his good weeks, and I think he'll have his bad weeks. They didn't give up. Did they give up? What did they give up for him? I don't think they gave up anything too crazy.
Yeah.
So, might as well, I guess. But I've got no strong view here.
Yeah. Fair assessment. All right. Well, our final segment of the evening. First of all, thank you for your quick hitter thoughts, guys. That was fun. Obviously, kind of fun to think about how things change in the league, obviously, as they change in real life. Our final segment of the evening is just an update of the Homer standings. Of course, you'll all remember this is not Homer as in home runs, but Homer as in how much you want your own guys. I did actually fully rank things out this time. I added in some tiebreakers. So if you have the same number of hometown players on your team, first tiebreaker is players on the active roster. Second is players on the IL. Third is minors players. And if it's all tied in that, the fewest points on the active roster actually takes the win. So I would consider you more of a homer if you have worse players from your own team on your team. So staying in 14th place, we have the Soul Sovereigns with just 1 Red Sox. Staying in 13th place, the Valley Gift Lords with only 2 Giants. Sliding down 7 spots from their former position are the Sault Ste. Marie Lux, who now employ 4 Tigers. That was our biggest faller of the group. The Fenton Melonheads employ 4 Guardians, down 2 spots from their last ranking. The St. Petersburg Tropopologists employ 4 Rays, 2 spots up for them, so a little bit higher up in terms of their homer value. The North Pole Natty Bows down 1 spot from their last ranking with 4 Orioles. Unfortunately, I think we know where that -1 comes from. The Joinville Friendly Capybara with 4 Angels, moving up 3 spots. Down 3 for the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes with 6 Cubs. Jumping way up, the Arizona Asphalt now have 7 Dodgers. The Washington State Winners fall out of the top 3. They employ 8 Mariners. Same with the Cuyahoga Black Panthers, who have 8 Guardians. And finally, to the top 3, the prestigious top 3, the Bronx Bandoleros, our biggest riser, up 4 spots. Employers of 10 Yankees, 6 on the active roster, 2 on the IL, 2 in the minor leagues. The Portland Pioneers.
I knew I was making top 3, guys. I knew it.
You made it.
I told you in the preseason polls. We are here.
He's made top 3. I just, we won't specify which list. The Portland Pioneers are our second ranked team on the homer standings. I'm always going to be up there with 12 Red Sox, 6 active, 3 on the IL, and 3 in the minors. Of note, I did not fall out of the top space because I got rid of Red Sox, but rather because the Red Sox got rid of Red Sox. I do employ both Kaisi Witherspoon and Anthony Ianson, so I lost to that. And our new number 1 spot, king of the Yankees in our league, certainly in employment total. The Arctic Real survivors with 13 Yankees on their roster, 8 active, 3 on the IL, and 2 in the minors. Congratulations to Min on leading the homer standings. I think that is about it. Well, gentlemen, thank you both for joining so much. Shout out to Mike as well. I know he had to dip just a little bit early, but it was super fun to do kind of a little round table here. Well done on the trade deadline, obviously, everyone. And good luck the rest of the season.
Do you know what that makes you, Larry? Lollygaggers. Lollygaggers.